cold here was not just weather. It was weight, a pressure that settled into the lungs, slowed the blood, and punished every careless movement. At the edge of the mountain ridge, buried in drifting snow, stood a small wooden cabin, old, scarred. Holding together out of habit more than strength, the nomad shut the door, not hard, not fast, carefully. In places like this, habits kept you alive longer than courage. Inside, firelight trembled across the walls. His wife sat close to the stove, hands open toward the heat, conserving warmth. The flame stayed low. Too much fire meant wasted fuel. Out here, survival was measured, never generous. Outside, the wind screamed across the slope. Snow did not fall straight. It cut sideways, scraping the ground, erasing tracks almost as quickly as they formed. Night crept down the mountain, swallowing distance, shrinking the world to whatever the fire could touch. Somewhere beyond the reach of the light, something moved. Not close. Not fast. Just far enough to be uncertain. The nomad paused, listening. The wind hid everything. Still, the feeling remained, that quiet pressure at the back of the mind. That came when eyes were watching from places you could not see. He stepped outside for a moment. The cold bit instantly. On the ridge across the valley, shapes stood against the storm. Pale, still, almost part of the snow itself. Wolves. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They waited. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled softly. The door closed again. Night settled deeper, and without anyone saying it aloud, all of them understood the same truth. This was not going to be a quiet night. Night did not arrive all at once. It pressed in slowly, layer by layer, until the world outside. The cabin became nothing but sound and movement, without shape. The wind rose first, stronger, louder. Snow swept sideways, rattling against the walls like thrown gravel. Inside, the fire held low and steady, its glow barely pushing back the dark. The nomad sat near the door, listening. His wife stayed close to the stove, conserving heat, conserving strength. Somewhere beyond the cabin, a howl cut through the storm. Not long. Not loud. Measured. Another answered from farther up the ridge. Then silence again. Wolves did not waste energy on noise. Hunger made them patient. The first shadow appeared near the tree line, only visible when the snow thinned for a second. Then another. They moved wide, never straight in, circling, testing. The nomad rose slowly, wrapping his fingers around the wooden torch. No sudden moves. In this cold, panic killed faster than teeth. A shape rushed closer too fast to ignore now. Snow exploded upward as a wolf lunged toward the cabin wall, stopping short, veering away at the last second. A warning, not an attack. The torch flared as the nomad stepped outside. Fire cracked in the wind, throwing long, broken shadows across the ground. The wolves froze. Yellow eyes reflected the flame. They stayed just beyond reach, pacing, calculating distance. Then one misjudged. It surged forward, low and fast. The nomad swung the torch, not wild, not desperate, forcing it back with heat and sparks. The wolf yelped, retreating with scorched fur. The others shifted, uneasy now. Fire changed the balance. The encounter lasted seconds, maybe less. Then they were gone again, melting into the storm as if they had never been there. Inside the cabin, breath came hard. Hands shook as the torch was set down. The nomad's forearm burned where ice had scraped skin raw. His wife bound it silently, tearing cloth with numb fingers. Outside, the wind continued as if nothing had happened. Sleep did not come easily. But exhaustion is stronger than fear. Eventually, wrapped in layers, they lay still as the fire collapsed into embers. The cabin creaked. Snow piled higher against the walls. Far away, beyond sight, wolves waited. Night was not finished yet. Morning arrived without ceremony. No warmth, no mercy. Just light. A pale blue glow crept over the ridge, thinning the darkness until the cabin reappeared, small, battered, still standing. Inside, the fire had collapsed into dull embers. The nomad woke first, breath shallow, joints stiff with cold. His arm throbbed where the night had scraped it raw. He opened the door slowly. The storm had moved on. Snow lay smooth and untouched till it didn't. Around the cabin, tracks cut the surface in wide arcs. Wolf prints, fresh, close. In one place, the snow was darkened where blood had frozen mid-splash, already losing its color to the cold. Daylight made everything clearer. It also made it harder to ignore. On the far ridge, shapes stood against the morning sky. Wolves again. Fewer than before. Still watching. They did not rush. Hunger had not vanished with the night. The nomad's wife stepped outside, favoring one leg, her face drawn tight. She followed his gaze to the tracks, then to the ridge. No words were needed. They both understood what the morning meant. The cabin had been tested and found worth returning to. They moved with care. Firewood was stacked closer now. Snow was packed higher against the walls, thickened where the wind had scoured it thin. Inside, supplies were counted. Fuel, cloth, time, everything measured. Nothing wasted. The nomad knelt near the doorway, pressing ice to his arm, jaw clenched. Pain was information out here. Ignore it, and it grew teeth of its own. Across the valley, the wolves shifted position, keeping distance. They were not retreating. They were learning. Morning did not bring safety. It brought clarity, and clarity carried a simple truth. The night had been a warning. The real test was still ahead. By late afternoon, the light was already fading again. Cold shortened days the way it shortened lives. The nomad worked without pause. Snow was scraped back from the cabin in a wide circle. Wood, cloth soaked in fuel, scraps of fat, everything that could burn, was laid carefully along the ground. Fire was not a weapon here. It was a boundary. When darkness returned, the first flames followed. A thin ring of fire came alive around the cabin, wavering in the wind, bending but not breaking. Sparks lifted and vanished into the black sky. Inside the circle, the air felt tighter, sharper, alive with risk. The wolves appeared before the fire settled. They came from different directions this time. Not together, not rushed. Shapes slid in and out of the snowlight, stopping just beyond the heat. One stepped closer, pesting. The flames hissed. It recoiled, ears flat, confused but not afraid enough to leave. Another tried from the opposite side. Then another. Pressure built, slow, relentless. The nomad stood at the door with the torch ready, his injured arm locked close to his body. His wife stayed behind him, gripping a burning brand with shaking hands. The fire painted both of them in harsh, flickering orange human shapes made fragile by light. A wolf lunged through the flames. It misjudged the heat. Fur singed. A sharp cry cut the air as it stumbled back, rolling in the snow. The nomad drove forward, shouting not in anger, but to claim space. The sound carried. The fire flared. The balance tipped. For a moment, everything happened at once. Movement, heat, teeth, smoke. Then it stopped. The wolves pulled back, one limping, another bleeding lightly where sparks had caught skin. They regrouped at the edge of the light, watching, calculating, and finally, deciding. One by one, they turned away. Not defeated, not chased, just unwilling to pay a higher price. The fire continued to burn. The wind carried ash across the snow. Inside the ring, the nomad sank to his knees, breath shaking. His wife knelt beside him, her own injury ignored until the danger passed. They had not won. They had endured. And in this place, that was enough for now. The fire burned low by morning. Not flames anymore, just embers, glowing red beneath a skin of ash. Smoke drifted straight up, thin and tired. The wind had eased. The mountain stood still, as if listening. The nomad opened the door and stepped into the cold. The ring of fire had broken into dark scars on the snow. Beyond it, the ground was empty. No movement. No eyes on the ridge. Only tracks fading where the storm had already begun to erase them. Inside, his wife sat wrapped in layers, breathing slow and shallow. Pain waited now that fear was gone. They tended to it quietly, without words, without looking for comfort, that didn't exist out here. The cabin remained, scarred, smelling of smoke, standing because it had to, somewhere far beyond the mountain. The wolves were moving again, searching, surviving, choosing easier ground. They had learned what the fire meant. The nomads had learned what the night could take. There was no victory to mark, no sound to celebrate. Only another morning earned got in places like this. Survival wasn't a triumph. It was permission to face the next night. If you're still watching, subscribe to the channel. These stories only exist because you do.